So this is going to be about our implications for practice, and we're going to talk about some things that we noticed and how we might use this as a principal when we're in a school from our developmental pre-K through 5th grade project.
And as future school executives, it was very important that we had this empirical experience simply because a lot of the language used at the primary level is very unfamiliar to us and is not transferable to the levels that we're currently teaching. And it'll be easy for us to move into that position as primary school administrators.
And another part that we kind of talked about that we learned was from doing the developmental project, we were able to see the physical demands of children, the cognitive, and Julie's the only one here that has a child, so she's seen a little bit of that, but for Donnell and myself, we haven't. So being able to go through those stages and see what children need at each level and where they should be learning developmentally, and then transferring that into what we saw in the classrooms and being able to make that comparison really helped, because there were times that we walked in the classroom that didn't necessarily match what we had read about and what the research said. And Julie's going to give an example of that.
One thing that we saw was that for the physical development and the cognitive development of children, that at the early years they need a lot of play and hands-on active learning. Yet when we went into kindergarten classrooms, we saw mostly sit and get and students who were not being engaged in the appropriate developmental path. And we also saw some gender differences, such as with the fine motor skills that we were practicing and emphasizing the handwriting. And for our male students, we may be teaching some of the stuff a little bit too early. We also saw that context really mattered. There wasn't one size that fit all for the examples of the pedagogical things. We could have multiple options when we go in as administrators of what could work based on the specifics of our setting.
And one other thing we also talked about was the Common Core standards have pushed down kind of what they learn at each grade level, where what they're now learning in kindergarten they probably used to in 1st grade and so forth. And so we've recognized some of those differences in the classrooms that we saw and could see where kids were struggling, but also where it was positive in a way, because you saw kindergartners doing the daily 5 and they were reading and writing, and all of those things are important for development later on.
So lastly, this experience was very substantive, and it allows us to not walk into a situation blindly, and we know exactly what to expect if we become potential elementary school executives.